So how does that happen? How does a group that started out as basically a social club for veterans transform into one of the most feared terrorist organizations in American history? Well, it's a wild story, and the answer is a strange mix of boredom, myth-making, and pure cynical business.
What we're going to do here is trace the 3 different lives of the Ku Klux Klan. You'll see how this group has managed to rise up, totally collapse, and then get reborn time and time again, always changing its tactics for a new era.
All right, let's wind the clock all the way back to the end of the Civil War, because this story really doesn't start where you'd probably think it does.
Get this, the first KKK wasn't founded on some grand evil master plan. It was basically a club for a bunch of bored young Confederate vets in a tiny Tennessee town. Seriously, they were just looking for something to do, a reason to get together, have a few drinks, and tell war stories.
And even the name tells you a lot about them. Ku Klux is just a riff on the Greek word kuklos, which means circle. They were college-educated guys, so they combined that with Klan to give a nod to their Scottish roots. It was all about creating this kind of mysterious, mythological vibe for their new boys' club. But this is where things take a really dark, really fast turn. They started with what they called pranks, dressing up in ghost costumes to spook newly freed African Americans, putting on silly voices, but that playful act was just a cover. Almost overnight, it morphed into organized, absolutely brutal terrorism. And make no mistake, this wasn't just random violence. It was incredibly specific. Historians even have a term for it, politicide. The goal was to systematically destroy a black political power before it could even get started. They used terror to scare black men away from the voting booth, and they hunted down and murdered black politicians and community leaders, the very people who could build a new future. Eventually, the federal government did step in and cracked down hard. By 1872, the First Klan was officially gone. But here's the kicker. They didn't really lose. In a way, they had already won. They had successfully terrorized the black population, helping to put white supremacists back in control of local governments. And once you have the sheriffs and the judges on your side, well, you don't really need masked vigilantes anymore, do you? And for almost 50 years, that was it. The Klan was basically a ghost, a footnote in history. Then, a brand new form of media brought it roaring back to life, and this time, it was bigger, richer, and way more mainstream than anyone could have ever imagined.
And the culprit, a movie. We're talking about the very first Hollywood blockbuster, The Birth of a Nation. It was a groundbreaking film, technically, but its message was just poison. It rewrote history, painting the original Klan as these noble heroes riding in to save the South. And the movie was a smash hit. It created this huge nationwide demand for a new Klan.
And the film got a huge boost from the most powerful man in the country. After showing it at the White House, President Woodrow Wilson himself supposedly said, "It is like writing history with lightning." I mean, with an endorsement like that from the president, this toxic version of history suddenly felt legitimate.
So you've got all this national hype, and in steps this guy, William Joseph Simmons. He sees a golden opportunity, but he doesn't just restart the Klan, he turns it into a business. The Second Klan was basically built like a pyramid scheme. You'd pay a $10 fee to join, which was a lot of money back then, and for every single new person you signed up, you got to pocket $4. All of a sudden, hate was very, very profitable.
And boy, did that business model work. It worked better than anyone could have predicted. It fueled this massive explosion in membership that turned the Klan from a fringe group into a national powerhouse, an invisible empire.
4 million members. Just let that number sink in. And remember, you had to be a native-born white Protestant man to even join. So 4 million isn't just a big number, it represents a huge slice of the people who are even eligible. This was not a fringe movement. This was mainstream America.
So how did they get so big? By putting on a wholesome, family-friendly face. The 1920s Klan was a social organization. They threw massive picnics for tens of thousands of people. They had rodeos, beauty pageants, their own marching bands. They even had a junior KKK for kids. You could literally live your entire life, from a Klan-sponsored christening to a Klan-sponsored funeral, all within this community. And when you have that many members, you get power, real political power. I mean, look at these numbers. Governors, senators, congressmen. In states like Indiana and Oregon, you pretty much couldn't get elected without the Klan's approval.
And they actually changed national policy, helping to pass the deeply racist Immigration Act of 1924, which shaped America for decades.
At their absolute peak in 1925, they marched 40,000 strong, without masks, right down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. They were on top of the world. And then it all came crashing down. It started just a few months later with a horrific crime committed by one of their most powerful leaders, D.C. Stevenson. His conviction for rape and murder, followed by the Great Depression, completely destroyed the organization from the inside out.
And you have to understand why that scandal was so devastating. The entire public image of the 1920s Klan was built on this one idea, protecting the purity of white women. So when their most powerful leader in the North is exposed as a violent, sadistic monster, the hypocrisy was just too much. It shattered their entire brand and exposed the rot at the very core of the movement.
So, the Invisible Empire crumbles for a second time. But as we've already seen, this story doesn't end there. After the Second World War, it would rise again, smaller, more fractured, but just as hateful. This time, in reaction to a brand new fight for freedom.
Think about it. Hundreds of thousands of black soldiers had just fought to defeat fascism and defend freedom in Europe. They came home as heroes, and they were understandably no longer willing to accept being treated as second-class citizens. This third wave of the Klan was the violent backlash to that powerful demand for civil rights.
And this leads to one of the wildest episodes in this entire story. The Klan tried to brand themselves as defenders of truth, justice, and the American way, but they ran into a problem. America's most popular hero already used that slogan, and his name was Superman. In an amazing act of counter-propaganda, an activist who'd infiltrated the Klan fed all their secret codes and rituals to the writers of the Superman radio show, and suddenly, millions of kids were listening to their hero beat up a thinly veiled version of the Klan every week, making a complete mockery of their secret society.
So when you look back at this whole crazy cycle, from a drinking club to a terror group to a giant corporation and back again, it really makes you ask a pretty tough question. What conditions, what economic fears, what social anxieties allow an organized hate group to move from the fringe right into the center of public life? That's the question this history forces us to grapple with even today.